A lot of people on the road. You're doing better than it sounds. Looks like you get beat up there.
Hello. Hey Shannon, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on.
How is Texas today?
Very windy, extremely
Very
windy.
windy, huh?
Really is. I mean, it's crazy. Like a month, and it's like a rainstorm, but it's not. It's clear, but it's super windy. How about you?
Well, it's beautiful and sunny now. It was it's been raining all week. I guess we had they called it a some sort of river that came through that just soaked everything.
Oh wow.
And but that's gone now. Now we're just waiting for things to kind of start drying out. But anyway, so looks like we've got a few people in here.
Yeah, I actually have one coming in too. Hey, Chuck, how are you doing?
Want to stand the whole time? Yes, sir.
What now?
Sure.
Yeah. Hang on a second.
Fine, I'll take it, sir.
Great.
Hello, what's your name, sir?
Shannon Robnett,
Nice to meet you, sir.
how are you?
Good. Hey, I called Joe Atwell. He might be interested in this as well.
Oh, yeah, you want me to send that one?
Yeah, send me your address. He's right over around the corner.
Okay.
I have a friend that's a big time realtor here in South Lake. He does nothing but $1 million investments and there's every millionaire in this area.
Oh, here.
Hey, what's your address on Texas?
I can text you.
Here, try this. My code is okay.
Okay. Let's see this thing. All right.
So we're talking about REITs, right?
Apartment syndications.
Same concept.
Let me turn this a little bit so you can get it.
Guys putting money together, buying it.
All right.
Are you there? Where's Tom?
Yeah.
I don't know. He said he's coming.
I told you I'd be here.
Awesome.
If I tell you I'll be there, I'll be there.
Well, we'll give it a couple more minutes and let a couple more people come in.
Awesome.
We might have another person showing up. We might follow a little later. That's my margarita, brother. It's Margarita Thursday. So just try it. Just try it. Just try it. Taste it.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You haven't seen that. Is it welcome to the send me your address too. You may be able to swing by.
Okay.
We'll give it a couple more minutes. We've got 5 other people in the room and we'll see how many more show up.
Where you at? Where you located at?
Well, currently I'm in Boise, Idaho. My tax residence is Puerto Rico.
But Puerto Rico is America, though. Tax exemptions are not that much there, so that's not. You live
Yeah,
there.
it is. It's Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. As a Commonwealth, it's not responsible to pay federal income tax.
I'm moving there.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Sign me up.
Yeah, and the bad side of that is I have to spend 183 days on the island.
That sounds horrible.
I know it really is. It's terrible.
Unless hurricanes are hitting.
Yeah, well, there was one about 4 years ago, and before that, the last hurricane that hit Puerto Rico was 1980. So
I had a friend of mine that he sold all his business and moved there for the tax implication. Yeah. But they had to leave and got all kinds of shit because actually, if you get in trouble there legally, it's way worse than ever. It's like third world shit. He had a granddaughter that came. They tried to steal his granddaughter and put her. There's a lot of human trafficking there.
Yeah, there can be a pretty dark underbelly, I've heard there, but
they got caught in something, whatever it is, what it is.
Yeah.
They were wealthy people, and they got them. Then the government stepped in and trying to prosecute them for all kinds of crazy shit because if you're outsider, you're not inside there, and the political governmental shit. Does that make sense? And they don't play by the same rules we do here a little bit.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for coming, but Tim, to just kind of give a little bit of background of who I am and what I'm doing, and then who you are and what you're doing, and then we can kind of talk about what it is we're doing together and how those things are coming together and some of the opportunities that are out there for people and what the whole process is. So for those of you that don't know me, which is most people on the call, my name is Shannon Robnett. I'm a 2nd generation builder developer, the 4th generation realtor. I've been in the business now for 27 years in my own companies. I've been a party to over $200 million in personal transactions in my lifetime. By the end of this year, we will have eclipsed 300 million. And that's just me being a buyer or a seller in the deal. That being said, I built everything from police stations, fire stations, city halls, hospitals, medical facilities, medical office, Just about everything but a gas station. Not really high on my list to build a gas station, but I guess if the opportunity was there, I'd do it. In 2018, I completed a 180 unit apartment complex that we are under contract with a company to sell that currently. We also have 191 units that are under construction. We got our C of O on 36 units today. And we have 60 units to start in January and another 400 in the pipeline for the next 12 months to start. We're also in the process of building 3 warehouses that are triple net leases. 2 are in opportunity zones. And we have another 60,000 square feet to get started here in the next 3 months, as well as 375 houses that we're going under contract on for build to rent. That's just kind of who I am in a nutshell, real briefly. So Tim, if you want to just kind of let people know who you are, and we'll go from there.
Sure, thanks. Thank you so much, Shannon. My name is Tim Tye. I'm an anesthesiologist here in the Dallas, Texas area. I've been an anesthesiologist for about 12 years. That's what I do most of the time. And now I am getting deeper into real estate investments. And I've done simple things like single family homes, rent long-term rentals, flips, renovates. I've rented out big houses, little houses. I've started acquiring commercial office spaces, small ones, and leasing those out. And just this year, I've started investing into apartment syndications. So I've done invested in 3 of them so far, and plan on many more. I think apartments are one of the ways to go. You get economy of scale, you get rent increase, and Shannon's going to talk a lot more about that tonight.
Yeah, so Tim, one of the best things about, in my opinion, about real estate is the ability to leverage it, and with that leverage, you're able to create a greater tax relief. And I think that's one of the biggest things that high net worth individuals are looking for in their investments isn't necessarily the rate of return, but the rate of return combined with the tax advantages, right? As we were discussing earlier, I go to great lengths, 183 days a year in Puerto Rico to avoid paying federal income tax. Not because I don't believe in our government, I just don't believe in how they spend our money. So
1,000% on that one.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that I want to talk about is just what is syndication and why do we do it? Well,
Can I ask you a question real quick? What's the difference between syndication and a REIT?
that's what we're getting ready to talk about. So the reality is that a syndication is just a fancy word for a partnership. And that partnership involves someone who is doing the work and people that are the passive investors. So in reality, there's the general partner who is doing the work. They're managing the apartment. They're taking on the responsibility of vetting the operators, vetting the property management company, vetting the maintenance guys, taking care of writing the leases, finding the deals. They're in charge of all of the daily operations. And then there's the passive investors. The passive investors are the ones that basically, they bring their money to the deal and they sit back and watch. They collect dividends, they collect tax benefits. And because all of that is done in a pari passu kind of a way, if you're 10% of the deal, you get 10% of the tax benefits that come with the deal. So the reality is at the end of the day, your impact can be far greater. To give you an example, if you were to buy a $10 million apartment complex, you would need to come up with $2.5 million in capital to get a 75% loan to value. But you would be able to receive, as far as the IRS was concerned, you just bought a $10 million asset. That asset is going to get things like depreciation, bonus depreciation, some of those other things that are going to be advantageous. Now, when you ask the question about what is the difference between a syndication and a REIT is a real estate investment trust, which that is typically a Wall Street version that owns hundreds and thousands of multifamily doors, or maybe 150, 250, 350 million dollars. Most REITs on Wall Street are in the billions, but it's a real estate investment trust, and it's large scale. And in that, it's typically publicly traded, but it is a voting stock. So in a syndication, the general partner makes the decisions. The general partner takes on all the liability. The general partner signs the loans. The general partner is responsible for all of those kinds of things. In that syndication, the limited partners are not signing on the loans. They're not responsible in the case of default. The only exposure that they ever have in the deal is their capital that they put in the deal. So very different in how they function, but very similar in the fact that they're both they're both about maximizing capital to be put into real estate transactions. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Will the general partner have any money in the game, or are they just basically?
Absolutely. Yeah. So typically that fluctuates, but typically in the deal, when I do one, I bring all of my expertise and up between 5 and 10% of the equity necessary. So the 250.
That's skin in the game, exactly.
Yep, $2.5 million. I would bring in somewhere between 125 and 250,000 of my own cash. I do not count any of my sweat equity because that is what y'all hired me for.
But do you get a management fee?
There are fees that go along with that, and that's all disclosed depending on how that works out. A lot of what we do is we do ground up development. So we take bare ground, we bring my expertise to the game, we build new facilities. And a lot of people think that there's more risk involved in ground up than there is in value add, which is where you buy an older apartment complex and you rehabilitate it. And I'll give you an example of where COVID has kind of shown people where that may or may not be the true reality. If you had purchased an apartment complex in 2018 in Orlando, Florida, for example, and you bought that for what you thought to be a 10% discount on a $10 million apartment complex, you'd paid $9 million for it. You thought you got a great deal, and you know that it needs $2 million to fix it up. So you're going to put that $2 million into it. And what, Tim, about January of 2019, February of 2019, you've got all your money spent, and here come this little thing called COVID. Orlando shut down, Disneyland shut down, all of that shut down, and you're left there with all your money spent. You've spent $1 million more on the park or on the asset than it's worth, and now you're sitting there trying to make those payments, and you have to do that, and you have to get those rents to raise because you currently can't service all your debt. So when you bought somebody else's cash flow, you wound up with a situation where you have paid top dollar for the asset. Now you've gone in and improved it because you're going to add value by increasing rents by $100. We started a ground up project in July of 2019, right in the middle of COVID. And when we took out our construction loan, so first of all, when you get a construction loan, you are getting 75% loan to cost. There's no value that you're adding. So they're only what the sticks and stones cost.
You're basically contractors, right?
We got an appraisal. So we had a independent third party tell us what the project was worth. This particular project was worth $5.2 million in cost, and we had an appraisal on it of $6.2 million. So we knew that as soon as we got it done and we got it stabilized at the rents that were forecast at that time, there was $1 million for the partnership to split. What we didn't know was that COVID was going to cause the housing shortage that it's caused. By the time we got done, that apartment complex was worth $7.5 million, and we split it at that time. But we actually built in, when the bank asked, how long is it going to take to build a project? We said it's going to take 12 months. The bank said, okay, we're going to finance 18 months worth of interest for you so that you don't have to make a payment for 18 months. Well, due to some supply chain issues and some shortages, wound up taking us 14 months to build the project. But when we were done with the project, we had plenty of runway to go, so we were able to stabilize the project, and now we're taking out long-term debt on the project. And we not only did we dodge that bullet, but in a situation where the shortages have happened, we actually have created, instead of $1 million in value, we created $2 million in value in that same period of time. So my investors invested $1.5 million. I put in $300,000, and we harvested out of that $2 million to split. So out of that, everybody got the pro rata share based on the partnership agreement. So as you can see, there's ways to mitigate the risk. What most people don't realize is that if your developer and your general contractor are not necessarily on the same team, you can have a lot of change orders that happen in the game, which is what really causes a lot of the friction on the job site. The way that we mitigate that in our organization is we do what's called a design build. So we start with the plumbers, the electricians, the heating and air guys, the framers. We get them involved in the design of the project, so we always know what the project is going to cost as we draw the plans. So when we're ready to build the buildings and we're ready to go, it's really hard for the electrician to come back to us and say, excuse me, I have a huge problem with this over here because this Wazinger that we called out is really expensive and it's different than the one that we really need for the job. Why? Because we had the electrician help draw the plans, right? So he's invested in the deal. When we put the general contractor and the developer on the same side, we don't wind up with change orders. It's their job to work for the investors and to solve those problems. And that's what they do during this whole period. And so at the end of the day, we don't have change orders. We don't have cost overruns that get out of control, which really is the biggest unknown in the project. Another thing we do is when we design the plans, we make sure that we own the plans so that from there, we can reuse those plans again and again and again. And as we do that, we begin to get systems and cycles that continue that make it easy for everybody to know where they're at, where their cost. Yes, sir.
Oh, is that so? Do you give them equity a little bit so they makes them a bit more honest? Like all your trades, your plumbers, your electricians, you offer them equity in the deal so they're
No, sir.
Oh, this is a good question. Therefore, they're
No.
honestly even stronger because they get more in the back than the front.
No, because the reality is we don't want to dilute the equity.
Okay.
And what you do when you do that is, are you really getting the price you need to get the job done? Or are you getting an inflated price because they don't want the equity, or they want more of the equity than they deserve?
So they overcharge you.
So the reality is we leave those two separate. Now, if a plumber wanted to give me a price to do the plumbing and he wants $160,000 and he wanted to come in on a separate note, put $50,000 into the deal, we would do that. My fire sprinkler guy does that here in Idaho, but those are two totally separate transactions so that we can keep it clear.
Work are two different things. Equity is personal, work is business.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what we've done is through this model, we've allowed someone's expertise to be used as leverage to allow the group to have a greater success. An example in your world, Tim, is just like the business that you build. If you wanted to take that and make that a national franchise where it's, and Tim's anesthesiologist of Nebraska and Kansas and wherever, you would go out and you would raise capital that would allow you to then move into those other markets and have other people have small slices of the business, but you would be the brains of the operation and be setting up the management structures and all those kinds of things, because everybody would be betting on your experience, having done this time and time again in your world, that's really what they're betting on, is you and that process to be successful in Missouri, just like you would be successful in Florida. And so as we continue to do this, what we've found is that our partnerships continue to grow because people realize that not only are there advantages with making money in this, because like you said, Tim, this allows you to get into, let's call it the big boys game, where we're doing a 190 unit apartment complex that's not necessarily available to everybody else, but you're also able to see where the tax advantages fall into play. Let me give you another example about an apartment complex that we did. It was $12 million to build the apartment complex. Out of that $12 million, we raised 25%, so we had about $3 million in cash. Okay. When we got done with the apartment complex, we did a cost segregation study. And for those of you that don't know, a cost segregation study takes every element in that and it looks at the Iras code and sees how quickly we can depreciate it. Like the landscaping, that can be depreciated in 5 years. The paint job, 5 years. The parking lot, 15 years. Some of the other items, the carpet, those kinds of things, 5 to 7 years. And you have an independent third party go through that. And at the end of the day, they let us know that we could take $1.9 million in bonus depreciation on day one. Well, what that meant was that went against earned income, passive income, and we were able to take $1.9 million off the top of our earned income, which got us about a 40% tax break on that. So of that $1.9 million, we recognized about $750,000 in tax benefits of cash dollars we did not have to send Uncle Sam on day one. There was another tax credit that we used that was called the 45L. And 45L is a tax credit that goes through and looks at the energy efficiency of your buildings and how you built them. And in all honesty, Tim, any building that is built by the 2015 IBC International Building Code will qualify for this 45L. But that 45L gave us another $345,000 in tax credits. Now, tax credits are different than depreciation because tax credits do not have to be repaid, and they go for dollar against your tax bill. So if you made $1 million and you owed the IRS 400 of that, and you had $345,000 in tax credits, you would simply write a check for $55,000 to the IRS. So at the end of the day, we invested $3 million and we wind up getting $1.1 million back in tax cash. So really, day two of the operation, we've got $1.8 million left in the deal in actual cash because of the benefits that we received just from the day one depreciation and tax credits. So at that point, our return is really skewed because we're getting our return based on half the cash in that we thought we were going to have into the deal, right? These are only the things that you can do with the IRS. And we've all seen the debate that's been going on this year about whether or not the 1031 is going to go away, right? The ability to move from one asset to another without paying taxes, as long as you reinvest. As we know, there's rich Democrats that don't want the 1031. The Democrats right now can't agree on anything, which we can all agree is a great thing. If you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, you're kind of frustrated, right? But the reality is that 1031 for the foreseeable future is going to stay in place. So now we're selling this asset. And when we sell that asset, we're going to do a 1031, which means that in a period of 180 days, we will reinvest the money into another deal, again, deferring the taxes. So there's a lot of tax advantages that happen. And at the scale that they happen, Todd, I see you there, and if you'll let me finish this thought, we'll get to your questions. I do appreciate that. So at the scale that this can happen on a large scale, it really begins to become attractive because when you look at what we're doing, if we're building and we're stabilizing these products, and then as the equity increases in them, we're actually able to refinance out that equity. And as you know, when you refinance something, that's not considered a taxable event because you're not selling it. So you're refinancing it, you're pulling cash out, you're now in it for less and less every single time you refinance, which means your returns are getting better and you're holding onto that product long-term and catching some of that long-term appreciation. So that just kind of gives you an overview of what syndication is and how we use it and what tax advantages we have. And so, Todd, if you've got some questions, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and let it rip, we'll do our best to answer. Todd, are you there? Let's see, we got a hand up. Let me see. Todd?
He may be having some issues with his computer. Let me see.
That's just the thing. I got a question while we're waiting.
Okay.
So when we're building the products out, once you get to the point that it's occupied, you're paying as the money starts being positive, we get a percentage of the profits as they come back out.
Correct.
Like, obviously, when you're first building, you're getting no profit. All you do is basically building.
Right. So if I understand your question correctly, so there is a set structure. I'm going to unmute everybody so that you can all, hopefully we can unfreeze Todd at that point. But in that structure, what typically happens is that the equity, so there's the debt, There's the 75% value that we get from the loan, and there's a 25% equity that we bring. That equity receives a 8% pref return, which means that before anybody else is paid, that equity gets 8% payment. Okay, so if we had $1 million, that would be $80,000. The first $80,000 that came in that were profits that were positive would go to that pref equity. Then from there, it's called a waterfall structure, and that waterfall structure is the higher the return goes, the more that the general partner gets. And what that structure is about motivating the general partner to do his job better so that everybody makes more money, right? So then at the end of the day, if I do my job really, really well, and we talked about you getting a 20% return, but like my last deal, they got a 39% return, my profits went up substantially as well because I got a larger slice of the deal because I did my job really, really well, right? So it motivates everybody in the same direction in a positive way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay, so Todd's firing away questions here. I'm going to try and get to them. So Todd asked, what is the minimum investment? Typically, we use a $50,000 minimum. And that varies from deal to deal, but we really try to keep it at an affordable level. And then his other question was, are people able to invest with their Roth IRAs? The beautiful thing about that is we do that, and we encourage people to invest with their self-directed IRA. And Todd, I'll give you a little tip here about a self-directed IRA. There's two different types of IRAs. There's the traditional, where you pay taxes when you get your money out. And there's the Roth, where you pay taxes when you put your money in. A lot of people go with the traditional IRA. Some go with the Roth. But if you invest with your traditional IRA, every year the IRS asks your syndicated partner, your general partner, to value what your IRA is worth. So funny little thing here is I can tell them whatever value I want, and in the process of the syndication, the liquidity in your investment is very, very limited, which means that it's probably not worth what you invested. i.e., if you invested $100,000, I could say that your investment is worth $49,999, and you would be able to move that from your traditional IRA into your Roth IRA. Because you can move $50,000 from a traditional Roth into a Roth, and that allowed you to put money in saying you were going to pay taxes later, move it to the we already paid taxes account, not having ever changed the value of it, and then when we're time to pay it back, oh gosh, now the liquidity is here, it's worth $100,000 again plus the profits. And we do that every year with a lot of people's IRAs. In fact, I learned that from a self-directed IRA company. So
can you do this in 401ks, self-directed 401k money there too as well?
That's correct. Yeah. The other question was, what is your average hold period on each property? So what I've found is that there are two kinds of investors. One kind of investor is an appreciation kind of investor, and they want to make their money grow. And the other is a cash flow investor. For example, my father is a cash flow investor. He's 72 years old. The pile of money that he has is all that he and mom have, and they want to make enough of a return on that they can buy motorhome fuel and dog food and see the world and enjoy themselves. I'm, on the other hand, trying to get to the next level. I want to grow mine, and so I'm looking at more development, less cash flow, growing the capital faster. So our typical deal is we're just about funded on a 60-unit apartment complex. That project will be 20 months. That project is projected to return about a 22% annual return. And in that 20 months, you'll probably get 1.5 times your money. So if you put 100,000 in, you would likely receive $150,000 back. That would be how that one would work. What that will happen was when that 60-unit apartment complex is done, we will transact on that and we will sell that to the other group that is only wanting cash flow. We'll leave enough meat on the bone that they'll get a decent return. There won't be the transaction fees going in and out. We'll make sure that everybody gets a fair deal. And then the next group that all they want is cash flow, they have the ability to hang on to that for long term because it's brand new. You've got warranties on stuff. We know it's a quality product. and you're going to have a long life with that, and you're not having to take any of the risks of the ground up development. So we really try to even those out and keep those fairly motivated like that. So average cash on cash return, that's hard for me to say. We just put a building under contract. It is a 20,000 square foot warehouse that we had projected. It's in an opportunity zone, so we planned on holding it for 10 years. It's $3.2 million to build. We were going to hold it for 10 years. We figured it would be worth $4.7 million in 10 years, and we would have received about $60,000 in cash flow off of it during each of those 10 years. We received an offer on it yesterday for $5.4 million. I'm going to take it. Oh yeah, I'm going to take it. That's a 232% return in a 16-month period of time.
I got another question for you.
So,
how do you compare to the things you see on TV? We see the same kind of things on TV all the time about these investments. I've been really big on like Fox, the apartment investment stuff, 25% returns, all. Is that the same kind of concept y'all are doing? Is we show those companies that are doing that on TV asking for investors?
I don't watch TV. I have Netflix. If I watch something, my wife is a Netflix and chill kind of a person, but so I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but our average returns are in the 30s. Because what we do is mostly ground up development. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to be able to do that and go from there. So let's see, I'm sorry for the person that I gave the lesson to. I was just trying to answer the question, I think. This is okay. So I think that answers the questions. If anybody else has questions, I hope that just kind of gave you an idea of what we do and how we operate. We are, sure, I appreciate that. And all we're looking at is in talking with Tim, just looking at being able to provide opportunity to people. We are doing currently, we're doing a 60,000 square foot build to suit single tenant warehouse triple net deal in Florida. That one will be about a 20% return. We'll hold that for a period of about 5 years. We plan on breaking ground on that in February. There are, we also have, I'm going in with a partner in Ocala, Florida, which I didn't realize this, Tim. I went to Ocala, Florida, and I thought, what's the big draw in Ocala, Florida? Well, the thing that's in Ocala, Florida is this place called The Villages. The Villages is the largest retirement community in the world. They just bought another 8,000 acres. They're planning another 48,000 homes on that 8,000 acres. They currently span 3 counties, and it's a 55 and older community that per capita has the highest occurrence of STDs in the nation. Oh, wow. So we have these horny little old people in Ocala, Florida, that are making a mess of things, but these 375 houses that we're building are workforce housing for that area. So we are building that with a developer, another developer friend of mine, that we are bringing in $7.5 million in capital. We're building the houses for $225,000 under contract with him, and we are selling the houses at $260,000 and or appraisal, whichever is higher. So we've got a minimum price that we're getting. Those returns are going to be in the low 20s, and that'll be about a 30-month project. We're also, because they're built to rent homes, we're also allowing people to look at it if you wanted to invest and then at the end just receive a home that is rented, that is under management, that is taken care of. There's also that opportunity. So you're not actually leaving with cash, which is kind of nice. And then you've got your own individual asset where you play in the party for a while and then move on from there. So, so Jordan asks, can you explain what happens when a deal dips below break even? I would assume reserves start to be used, then a capital call could happen. etc. Does the GP or KP ever get affected if the bank takes back the property? So most of what we do, Jordan, is that we do non-recourse during construction, and all of our long-term debt is non-recourse, especially if we're HUD financed. Your description is fairly accurate. If it did dip below, you would have that problem where it would begin to use the reserves. But if you take the example that I gave of the 36-unit apartment complex, that loan service, that debt service, we could service that debt at 60% occupied, okay? So we could either do 60% rents and go full, or we could do 75% rents and come out ahead. Those are the kind of things that brand new allow you to do, because you're weaning yourself off slowly of the construction money, because you've got that longer runway. It's going to take you 20 months to build. You've got a 30-month construction loan. You're weaning yourself off of that interest payment, and you're able to build that tenancy, and you've got a lot of room in there because you're not buying at a cap rate based on 95% occupancy and the cash flow coming in on a pre-calculated amount. But your scenario is correct. The GP would be affected to the same degree that the other LPs were. So in the case that you brought capital, the GP would bring 10% of the capital call, and the limited partners would bring the 90% based on the pro rata share of that happening. And there are a lot of other things in there that are all spelled out in the PPMs. They're very lengthy legal documents that are really quite boring, but we do provide all of that for everybody. We're starting 10 to 15 new projects a year. I'm negotiating the final terms on a property that'll take on another 240 doors. We should be closing on that at the end of the year, and then we'll begin the construction process. And then let's see, it looks like, Todd, I'll get with you and we can have a one-on-one conversation, no problem. And we can talk further about that as far as, I'll get your cell number from Tim. Perfect, I got that. So hopefully that answered your questions. And then, Jordan, did I adequately answer yours? It kind of ran on and I got into Todd's there. I'm sorry about that. Who can see your messages? I will get out a recording of this so that you can, everybody can have a recording. I will also, Tim, will give everybody our contact information so they can get a hold of me directly. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to ask.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that. I have a couple of friends online that are, I'm not sure what their experience is in the apartment syndications. And I was just curious if you by chance had any like graphics that you could kind of just show like this, like extreme basics of apartment syndication, and kind of, and if you don't, that's fine, but you explained it pretty well at the very beginning, but just kind of showing the broad differences between like an LP and GP. Some of these terms are being mentioned, and I don't know if everybody knows what the terms mean.
You know, Tim, I apologize. I do have those. I just don't have them right here at my fingertips. But what I'll do is I'll get those to you tonight so that you can send those out so that people can kind of see some of the graphic depictions of what a structure is and how they are protected. In all reality, the general partner is the one that's taking on the loan, that's signing for everything. The LPs really sit out here to the side so that they are limited. And that's really something that's very important, because, you know, if the GP is doing something stupid, you don't want to get drugged down with them.
Now, also, you were telling me about some other projects. I think at least Todd and Casey and Deepak and Chuck and I are here in Texas. Didn't you have some interesting projects in North Texas that were pending?
Yeah, we did fund that one in Princeton, Texas. I've got another one that I'm working on in Houston.
Awesome.
It's a 10-acre project. I think we're going to be able to get about 300 units on that. And we're working with some other people in the area, because I really like to go into a market knowing who is my boots on the ground, who has got local tribal knowledge that can make sure that we're not, hey, this is a great piece of ground. Yeah, but you don't know that 2 streets over is really, really bad neighborhood, right? So working with a couple other people to make sure that the deals that we bring together are properly vetted, and that the people that we're working with are properly vetted. We like to use local contractors. so that we're not bringing in a contractor from North Carolina that doesn't know anybody, has no relationships, all of those kinds of things. So when we move into those markets, we'll definitely be pulling those together. But that deal that I was talking with you about, Tim, we needed to raise $9 million. We actually round up raising 10 and a quarter. So we had to send some money back. You know, and just what we did was we just kind of cut everybody's position down a little bit and let everybody get in. But that was something, and that's 300. That was 400 units in phase one, and 375 will be in phase two, 378 or whatever it is in phase two. So it'd be a total of almost 800 units.
What part of Houston was that at?
That one was in Princeton, Texas. We're looking at another property in Houston, Texas. We should have more information on that and be ready to launch that first part of the year.
That's wonderful. And I was thinking just the last point to mention that I've noticed about you personally is that you do projects that are not just apartments. You do office buildings and, like you said, home building and other types of projects, which is interesting.
Yeah, you know, Tim, I have to admit, I'm doing my first value add, and as you and I talked, I'm doing a value add apartment, or sorry, a value add office building. I found an office building right across the freeway from our airport, and be like DFW, but a lot smaller. And it is a 45,000 square foot building. There's 17,000 square foot of vacancy in it. One of the main stakeholders in it is the FAA. They're in there till 2040. So we've got a long lease with them, but I'm actually moving my operation in there. I'm taking 5,000 feet. An engineering firm is taking 6,500 feet. So before I actually own the building, we're down to about 5,000 square feet of space available. And this building is beautiful. It's a great building, but it's stuck right in 1980. And with that being stuck in 1980, it just needs to be revamped. People are paying $17 rents, and down the street where they've got brand new buildings, they're paying $35 rents. This is 4 miles away, right? On the same interstate. Wow. So really, we're going to redo the carpet, redo the paint, redo the landscaping, bring everything up to new, gut all the old tenant improvements. I don't know if, Tim, you've been in enough office buildings that you see where they remodeled it, and pretty soon you're walking through 2 offices and a conference room to get to the bathroom because that was somebody's idea of a floor plan, right? Yeah. We're going to take all that out and have it tenant improvement ready. We're also working with a national firm that is a Botox and women's spa that does rejuvenation things, and they have a lot of clientele that like to visit family out of town when they have procedures done. And so, being right across the street from the airport, they want 5,000 feet, and we're in negotiations with them on that. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that we're doing. But this is a brand new office, or a 1980s office building, Tim, that I'm buying for $4.5 million. Now, I can't build the building for $4.5 million, let alone on the ground with everything else. And then we're going to put about $2 million in, or about $1.5 million into the remodel and get that all done. And then when I was getting ready to do it, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back in and see if I can't negotiate a little harder with the owner and see if I can't get it down just another, $250,000. I mean, something about $250,000 just sounds nice. I actually went down and I got him to agree to be the banker on it. So he's carrying it back for me at 6% interest only for 12 months, principal and interest for 24 months. So I'm not going to incur any closing costs or banking fees for the first 24 months. So it saved me a little bit over $250,000 just because I bothered to ask. So that's a project that we've got going. That is a 506C. So that's for accredited investors. And we've got some other things. So if you guys wanted to go to my website, it's shannonrobnett.com. You can find our stuff there, or I can just send you stuff if we want to talk about what you're interested in, and I'll follow up with you and Tim and get some information from everybody, and we'll also get this recording out to those that want it.
Awesome. Do you have any questions, Sean?
Great, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions that is watching along?
I do have one. If you had a 401k, how would you get the money out and turn it to y'all? That's a thing.
Well, 401k, so self-directed IRAs, or you would contact.
I'm an IRA, but my 401k has way more money in it.
You would contact a self-directed company, self-directed IRAs. They would help you walk through the steps and procedures to do that. I can give you a couple of those that are really good fiduciaries that might be able to help you navigate that. I don't know exactly the mechanism. I just get paperwork that I fill out the name of the investment and things like that, and they move the money.
You have people with 401ks ever do the same thing, move their money, because you can self-direct everything, I guess, nowadays.
I think you can self-direct everything. I haven't really been involved with it other than I get the request and I fill out the paperwork. I don't really know whether it's an IRA or a 401k or that kind of thing. I couldn't personally attest to what it is.
Yeah. Interesting thing is our friend Todd Schneider, he lives in the same neighborhood as my house and as Chuck's house. And Todd knows how to do all that stuff. So Todd can definitely help you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Connect to
I
that.
guarantee you.
It's always good to have a neighbor like that.
Your
Yeah.
returns will way be better than Fidelity. Family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's very exciting. I mean, and there's a lot of projects coming down the pipe, right? That are
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, no, I have, consistently over the last 12 months, raised about 25 to $30 million a year on an annual basis. We're also working with some other people that are also doing that. And so we're starting to work in concert and take on some bigger projects, $50 to $90 million projects, which take a large amount of cash, which is, well, it's a great hole to stuff money in and make money with.
So I see there's everybody's staying on. It is wonderful. Can you really quickly explain, just in case there's anybody online who doesn't know the difference between an accredited and sophisticated investor, and then like
Sure.
What their next step is if they were interested in learning more?
Sure. So an accredited investor is a person who makes over $200,000 a year, or as a couple makes $300,000 a year, and has $1 million in net worth outside of their personal residence. So if you were an accredited investor, you could invest in a 506C, which means that you don't have to know the person. You can just make that decision and make that investment after reading the paperwork. I tend to do some of both. I do a 506C, which is for accredited investors, and I do 506Bs, which think of B for like B for buddy. So 506B allows you to have a substantive relationship with the person. Like Tim, you and I spent an afternoon together, got to know each other before we ever really talked real estate. We had chips and salsa. In fact, I was at an Uncle Julio's. I sent you the picture. I was at Uncle Julio's in Orlando, eating the queso, and I was by myself, so it looked like I'd just gotten broken up with or something. So I just, eating the queso. But a sophisticated or an unaccredited investor doesn't have to meet those requirements, but they do have to have a substantive relationship with the syndicator. So they have to know each other outside of this particular deal, which time spent on a Zoom call sometimes counts. It's more about getting to know beyond that and understanding what their goals are and how to help them reach those goals. And I like to spend time with people anyway, trying to figure out what the deal is and what they're really wanting. So you don't wind up with somebody that's looking for appreciation in a cash flow deal or vice versa.
Right.
So
you have quite a bit of presence on social media as well. So if folks here want to link up with you on the social media, you have a lot of information rolling out every day, podcasts and everything, right?
I wish I could say I did all that myself. I started out doing that, and I did that for about 9 months, and then I got an assistant that does that. But I do have a podcast. It's called the Robnett Real Estate Rundown. I try to hit on all genres, from property management to short-term rentals to lending to maintenance, all kinds of stuff, so that you can see the different aspects of real estate and how to be involved. And then you also have, my social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. I figured if it worked for a president, it might be good enough for me. So.
But you're not blocked yet.
Yeah, I'm not blocked yet. I like the way you throw that in, the yet part. It's like you know me.
He's coming with his own platform, so you can be there forever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, thank you very much for all that information and all that presentation.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you, and
you're very good. Thank you.
Once the recording comes out, we'll send it out to everybody. And
I'll have it out to you in the morning.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, this is awesome, Shannon. Thank you so much, and let me know when you're back in town. And I definitely want to know what projects you have coming down the pike, for sure.
And I will get those to you in the morning as well, so you can see what we're doing.
Very exciting.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you.